Hi everyone, it's Mark here again. I'm the founder of the Arts and Culture Network. We're now at 93,000 across our 5 LinkedIn groups. Wherever this appears, you'll find links to those groups. And this is the best fun of the job for me. It's where I get to chat to our new 4 members. And I'm delighted that Paul Nicholls has joined me today for this. Paul, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, it's very, very exciting to be part of the group.
That's kind of you. Thank you so much. Now, this is my opportunity to introduce you and for you to tell some of our members about Crystal Kingdom and the work you're doing, the work you want to do, and who would make really good connections for you. And then we're going to have fun with the arts and culture, this or that, arts and culture hot top 10 game, and the this or that quiz.
Sounds good.
I don't know if you remember it, but the this or that game was inspired by a TV show that I saw when I was a kid, where they would plonk a celebrity down in front of a camera, and the computer voice would give it 2 options, and they had to choose one or the other. And I remember David Shilton doing it, or somebody. It was brilliant. Anyway, so please, where are you? Where are you based? What's going on? And tell us about the Crystal Kingdom.
Yeah, so I'm based in Southend-on-Sea in Essex, which is about 35 miles east of London for those non-UK international members.
It's actually where the North Sea meets the River Thames on its way to Amsterdam, isn't it?
There you go. I always say if you keep going east, you end up in Holland or end up in Amsterdam, so that's not bad. I've pretty much lived here all of my life. I've spent a little bit of time traveling and, visiting various cities, and lived in London for a while. But yeah, I'm here, and I'm the owner and founder of the Crystal Kingdom Social Enterprise, which is a registered non-profit. And we're set up ultimately with the goal of reducing self-harm and suicide amongst young people. But we do that through interactive early intervention programs that are based on a middle grade fantasy novel called The Magical Secret of the Crystal Kingdom. I wrote that originally for my children, who were 8 and 6 at the time. But it turned out that they liked it and my mum liked it. And when I started making inquiries, lots of other people liked it, which was great. So I started getting invited into schools to read to the children in the class. The book contains positive reinforcement messages to help children go on a journey, a process of self-realization that they're amazing just as they are, and to give them the confidence and coping mechanisms to pursue what they love and love life. We work with organized spaces of children. We've completed a number of phases in terms of our initial minimum viable product, our proof of concept, all of the initial marketing assets and setup that we needed, and we've been delivering for about 2 years now after our research phase, and we're in our proof of scale phase. What took us by surprise is we don't charge the schools, we don't charge the end users. We work with building relationships between businesses and the community. So businesses sponsor us so that we can deliver the programs, deliver the packs to the children. And then obviously the relationship between the school and the parents and those businesses is massively elevated, because rather than seeing them as commercial entities, they see them as invested partners in their children's future. And the response we've had from the school and the children in the classes has been amazing. We train teenagers to go back to their old primary school. And, I like to joke that the teenagers then suddenly, go from wanting to torment their parents to realizing that giving back and contributing in society is actually an amazing feeling. It empowers them, and it creates a career pathway through mentoring from the businesses that sponsor them, which is amazing. So we set it up as a vehicle for anyone that wants to have an impact, give back, contribute, to get involved, and hopefully through generational change, we can have a society of people who want to stay alive and really love life, rather than, for a lot of people, unfortunately, just endure it.
Oh, congratulations, Paul. That's, and I've said this before when we've spoken before, but that is such valuable and brilliant work.
Thank you.
I think I love the fact that it came out of a story that you wrote, and what's happened since. So
Mm.
that's fantastic. Thank you so much for all that great work that you're doing. You and I live close together, so
We do.
we should have done this over a beer somewhere, but
Yeah, we should. Well,
but
there's always time for that.
there is always time for that. We'll find it. You're probably about 8 miles away, I should think,
Not far.
where I am. So that's great. But thank you so much. So wherever this appears, we'll make sure there are links to everything, that so that people can find out more how they might support the work, and make introductions. And on that, who's a really good intro? I mean, we've got 93,000 people in our network,
Yeah.
many of whom are which in the UK, if that's the focus. So what does a champagne referral look like to you?
Well, I'm glad you asked that and mentioned that, because the roadmap is now international. We delivered to a few local schools, and the demand from them went from one school to well over 100 schools in pretty much overnight. So we revisited the roadmap and made a plan to roll this out internationally, starting with, a 5-year plan to get into to deliver to 10% of the schools across the UK and Ireland, then New Zealand, Australia, Canada, and the US. Ideal referrals for me are marketing directors and people who have creative flair. I used to run a small studio in North London, and I loved, the amount of variety and talent that was there. And one of the things that, I'm very passionate about is finding ways to help people to pursue what they love. So if anyone is obviously in the group, there's a lot of creative people, there's a lot of people in the arts. So it's not just about my book and the program that we are currently delivering. It's about all of those creative opportunities out there that we can turn into programs to help support the creative people out there by providing, hopefully, investment into their creativity. But marketing directors is definitely a great referral. I've been lucky enough to be, very well networked in my life, and a number of people have recommended some really sort of high level corporate clients to me. So the funding we need to deliver internationally is definitely, the likes of Coca-Cola and KPMG, and those big brands who have their own corporate social responsibility programs, or the latest lingo on that.
Yeah, no, excellent. So I'll make that. We'll have a look and see, how many marketing directors we've got in that 93,000. That's one of the things we'll do.
Another person I always like to ask for as a champagne referral, and slightly for comedy purposes, because as you can probably tell from my regional accent, I'm a Liverpool FC supporter, but I asked for Marcus Rashford to as an ideal referral, because I'm just so impressed with the work that he's doing. And though he plays for Manchester United, and I only kind of joke about not liking them for comedy purposes, I'd love to collaborate with someone like Marcus Rashford, because he's delivering, right to those children, making sure they both get physically fed, and that their minds get fed with the right material as well, through the partnership with Macmillan.
Well, let's see what we can do with that.
Thank you.
That would be great, wouldn't it? Yeah, that would be really interesting. I've got a contact into Manchester City, but I'm not sure that would extend to
well, look, it's any introduction into that world would also be massively appreciated.
Okay, certainly. I'm sure there'll be something, so we'll have a go at that next time we meet, when we do the kind of matchmaking.
Absolutely
meeting.
great.
Perfect. Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Paul. Now we're going to have a fun now. I'm going to paint a picture of you for our fellow members based on your answers to a certain number of questions. Okay. So
I'll apologise in advance then.
The first question is quite easy, I think. Do you have a favorite building? And if so, why?
That is an interesting question. It's probably going to be something like the Tower of London, because I love any ancient city that has those kind of, you know, ridiculously old buildings right next to modern skyscrapers. So when I was very little, I went to the Tower of London. It left a lasting impression on me. And when I was working in the city, commuting to the city, I just always used to find it fascinating that you can turn around the corner and there's just a, you know, 1,000-year-old castle, you know, in amongst all of the, you know, modern buildings. So yeah, I'm going to say that there's a few
that's a
close contenders.
That's a great start. So my picture, I have a picture of you, you know, out in the moat of the Tower of London where they have the grass and they had the red poppies for
Yes.
remembrance of it. Right, you're having a picnic there. Okay, that's where I'm putting you. Now, beside you is a book, and it's your favorite book, and you're sitting there in the sunshine, and you've had a little bit of a read. You might have a doze. They've given you special permission to sit there. You can see the skyscrapers. You're lying on your back, and you've just been reading a bit of your book, and it's your favorite book or a book that comes to mind. So, what might that book be?
So I've got a new favorite book, quite recent times. That's the Cloud Atlas.
Oh, I love that. Love it.
It blew me away to read something like that, especially so modern, you know, that it's been written in the last 10 years, I think 15 maybe.
15, but it's so fragmented and
it
leaps
is
around. Isn't it wonderful?
Yeah.
I don't know, do you feel they made a decent movie of it?
Well, I saw the film first, and found it very, very. I really enjoyed it, and I've probably seen it 4 or 5 times since because there's so many layers to it. I found the book beautiful, and I found the film quite in places unsettling. So it was interesting. I really enjoyed the film, but the book I think is just on another level.
Excellent. So I've got you having a picnic in the moat at the Tower of London, lying on your back, looking up at the clouds and cloud atlases on your lap, and you've just had a bit of a read. Okay, now there's a bit of a switch around coming now.
Okay.
I'm changing this as we go. Let me just, I am changing this as we go. You're celebrating because an august institution has offered you an all expenses paid year studying the arts and culture sector in another country. Okay, where are you going?
It's so hard to pick. It's probably going to sound really boring to a lot of people, but I probably would say France. I absolutely love France, and I would love to spend more time there, exploring, you know, all of the museums and paintings and castles and tapestries. So yeah, I'm going to say France.
Okay, I'm sending you to France.
Yeah.
The august institution that's sponsored your trip has arranged for you to meet some friends when you get there, and you arrange to meet at the glass pyramid outside the Louvre in Paris. Okay, so you've left the Tower of London behind and your book, and they want to make sure that your experience is a good one. So they're going to be guiding you through, but they've got a few magic opportunities. So one of them is to go and see that evening a dance show of some description. Okay, so do you have a favorite dancer to start with? Doesn't matter if you don't, or a favorite dance group, or a favorite dance style. Pick any of those, because that's where they're taking you tonight, to go and see a performance of dance. What would you love to see? You can have anything.
Well, I've never seen Swan Lake, and I'd love to see that. I love the music from it. Very familiar with the story, but just never seen it.
Okay, perfect. So that your new French friends are taking you that evening to watch Swan Lake. So that's great. Now, the challenge, one of them hands you a note, and it's from the August institution that has sent you on this year. They want to do some experiments on you while you're researching the arts and culture sector in France, right? And they've said that after the ballet, from that morning onwards, from tomorrow morning onwards, you're only allowed to listen to one genre of music for the whole year.
Oh.
And they need to know which one it is. So one type of music only.
I'm going to pick my favorite style of music, which is progressive rock.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I told you this always comes up with anecdotes and surprises, because I'm with you, I'm afraid.
Right.
So who'd be on that shortlist then? On your
in terms of bands,
mixtape? Yeah,
Marillion,
okay.
Genesis, Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
Some more kind of, I mean, they're not necessarily falling into progressive rock, but I think they're influenced by them massively. So these days, bands like Nothing But Thieves, London Grammar. So that would be my mix on that.
Brilliant.
I like most music, but that is always my go-to.
I have there's progressive rock in my hot top 10. In my Desert Island Discs, there would be.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I'd have to add Yes.
Yeah.
And Dream Theater.
Right.
Do you know Dream Theater?
I don't know much of them. No, I don't know them like I know those others. Right. I'll have a listen. There's another band called My Morning Jacket. I don't know if you've ever heard of them.
No.
They are, it's really amazing stuff.
Yeah.
Certain
I've
albums.
seen my wife and I, we went to, they weren't coming to London, so we had to go to Turin to see their and that was the closest. But they took over the Palladium to play their rock opera called The Astonishing.
Right.
And it's incredible. And if you like Pink Floyd as well, they did a live show and they played Dark Side of the Moon start to finish. And the it's on YouTube, you'll find it. They're not sort of precious about that. They're the sort of band that encouraged bootleggers in the day. So yeah, I mean the musicianship is just staggering across the board. So yeah, Dream Theater, that would be my top recommendation for something to watch later. Okay, amazing. So you're getting progressive rock. Fantastic. Yeah. Love that. It'll take you a while to get through all those
Yes. It will, won't it?
Genesis albums. Fantastic.
I need a year for one album.
Yeah. Now the next day they said, right, we want to take you to a sporting event because we treat sport as part of our culture. So but they've said you can see anything you like, any sporting event at all. So what sport would you be keen to go and watch?
The Olympics. I'd love to go to so obviously the whole package there.
Yeah, that's a big ask, but they've waved their magic wand, and the Olympics are suddenly happening in Paris the next day. Yeah, that's great. Did you go to 2012 at all?
I didn't. No, I didn't. Yeah, I was here for the first couple of days, and then I was away.
Yeah, no, we went to the handball, and
nice.
And I've rewatched the opening ceremony again several times since.
Me too. It was incredible, wasn't it?
Extremely moving.
Yeah,
it's just incredible achievement. That brilliant. Okay, and so you're going to see a bit of the Olympics, and then in the evening there's a private show of a new exhibition of a visual artist. It's the first time that every piece of work by this artist has been brought together. And they've said you can choose which artist it is. So whose work would you like to go to a private view of, living or dead?
Can I pick sculpture?
You can. I'd
want Rodin, the works of Rodin. I I find them amazing. I find it amazing. I find sculpture amazing. I just don't understand how they can do it.
I know.
I mean, I find it's all amazing, but yeah, that's what I'd want to go to. I find, you know, some of the famous pieces,
The
I could
Kiss,
just sit there for hours, days,
Kiss and
probably.
The Thinker.
The Thinker, yeah.
That's a great choice. I love that. Okay, and then that evening there is this magical theatre in which you can press a button and suddenly live on stage is any play or musical you want.
Oh.
Okay, what do you press? What are you going for?
So I'm gonna pick my favorite, which is Les Mis. I love it. I've seen it multiple times, and again, I could watch it over and over again. So yeah, I think if you're asking for magic wand stuff, that would be
okay.
what I'd go for.
You can have that. Did you think the movie did it justice?
I did, actually. I really enjoyed it. I mean, I don't want to say too much, but it does. I was slightly disappointed there weren't leads cast of actual musical theatre performers as opposed to Hollywood actors. Don't get me wrong, I think almost all of them were incredible in it, but I would have liked to have seen it opened up to some of those names.
It was sung through, wasn't it?
He insisted on them singing their own parts. You know, Russell Crowe kind of didn't quite necessarily cast the same image, I suppose, that I had in my mind for Javert, having seen, you know, a few people, but I still enjoyed it. I thought it was really good.
He brought something to it.
He absolutely did.
That kind of gruff approach. So
my favorite part in that was Eponine. She was incredible. And she came, I think, through an audition process for one of the TV shows. I forget what one it was. It might have been for for Sound of Music, and then ended up getting cast in that film as well. She was unbelievable.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, great. Now, next night, it's your final night with these welcome hosts, and they're taking you to the cinema. And it's got a similar magic button. And what film would you want to watch and have them join you to watch? Any film at all?
So my favorite film is Groundhog Day. Lots of people normally groan because it's like the same thing over and over, but I just think the message in that is, again, you can watch it over and over and learn something every time. So although it's a bit of a screwball comedy, it's got heart and again, multiple layers. So I like that.
And the final question for this bit, with the exception of me, who was the last person to make you laugh?
Probably one of my close friends, Adam Shaw. He does a lot of networking as well. He's a great guy. And I've virtually every time I pick up the phone to him, I'm laughing within about 30 seconds because he's just very, very funny.
Brilliant. Paul, that was wonderful. Thank you so much for doing that. We've got a picture of you now. You've just sort of put a spotlight literally on your preferences, and we've been able to place you, and it's great. So this one is a bit more fast-paced. It's rapid fire. Are you ready?
Okay. I'll try.
So this is the this or that game. There are no wrong answers. There are only two possible answers. You only have to choose one or other of these, but you must choose one. Right. Are you ready?
Yes.
Tea or coffee?
Tea.
Radio or television?
Television.
Motorcycle or car?
Car.
Comedy or horror?
Comedy.
Sports stadium or concert hall?
Concert hall.
Cat or dog?
Cat.
Test the water or dive in at the deep end?
Dive in.
Orange juice, bits or no bits?
Bits.
Library or museum?
Library.
Beethoven or Mozart?
Beethoven.
Shower or bath?
Bath.
Cooking or being cooked for?
Being cooked for.
Fiction or non-fiction?
Fiction.
Shopping online or shopping in store?
Can I pass? Online.
Reggae or salsa?
Reggae.
Indoors or outdoors?
Outdoors.
Android or iPhone?
Android.
Start immediately or wait until the last minute?
Way into the last minute.
My kindred spirit. Science or history?
History.
New York or Los Angeles?
Los Angeles.
Black or white?
White.
Circle or square?
Circle.
Early morning or early hours?
Early hours.
Messy desk or tidy desk?
Tidy.
Me too. Red or white wine?
Red.
Batman or Superman?
My son. Superman.
Numbers or words?
Words.
Rare or well done?
Rare.
Mild or spicy?
Spicy.
Opera or chamber music?
Chamber music.
Whiskey or rum?
Rum.
North or South London?
South.
Stripes or spots?
Stripes.
Football or rugby?
Football.
Mountains or beaches?
That's so hard. Mountains.
Savory snacks, sweet or savory?
Savory.
Photography or painting?
Photography.
Jazz or classical?
Classical.
Acoustic or electric?
Acoustic.
Mystery or romance novels?
Mystery.
Hemingway or Fitzgerald?
I don't know. Don't know on that one. I'll just pick one. Hemingway.
Go.
Let me sound more cultured than I am.
And finally, this has been great. See the future or change the past?
I'm going to go with see the future.
Brilliant. Well, great job you did. That's fantastic. I love doing this.
Thank you. It's great.
I hope that was fun, but it just means that when some of our other members watch this, as they will, it's just they'll feel as though they've got to know you a bit better and had the pleasure of meeting you as I now have. So, Paul, thank you so much for doing this. It's really
thank you.
We'll pop all the contact details and the links to further information about Crystal Kingdom wherever this appears. But we need to do another meeting so that we can do the matching.
Right.
We do. So for the time being, Paul, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.